The V8 model of the 234A was equipped with 4 UMO engines to serve as a testbed for the proposed 4-engine C model. This would have the same airframe as the B variant, but would mount 4 UMO engines. The 8th prototype of the AR234 was also the first produced to the B specification. This was constructed with a slightly wider body that allowed a strong but narrow track nosewheel undercarriage to be fitted. Taking to the air for the first time on March the 10th, 1944, the 234B became the first production model, with deliveries to Sonderkommando Gotz taking place in September 1944. Aircraft from this unit were employed to fly over southern England. In the meantime, 2 of the earliest skid-equipped A models had already shown their worth by reconnoitring the Normandy bridgehead without interception. The bomber variant of the 234 first saw service with KG-76 in the Ardennes offensive and undertook abortive raids against the Remagen Bridge in early 1945. The bulk of the 274 built were B models. The Me-262 and the AR-234, in whatever variant, were 2 of the most remarkable aircraft to see service in the Second World War. When the Allies plundered the design offices of Germany's major aircraft companies, they found designs for a huge number of jet aircraft, many of whose features would find their way into the first generation of post-war jets. The relative impotence of the Luftwaffe's bomber force in the West to carry out any sort of effective bombing campaign against the British Isles from 1942 onwards made the attraction of a fast unmanned flying bomb irresistible to Adolf Hitler. In the Fiesler Fi-103 he had at last the Vergeltungswaffe, or revenge weapon, with which he could hit back and retaliate for the increasingly devastating raids conducted by RAF Bomber Command on German cities. Powered by an Argus Pulse jet engine producing just 740 pounds of thrust, the newly christened V1 could carry a warhead of 1,870 pounds on a fuel load that would give it half an hour's flight time at about 400 miles an hour at an altitude of up to 4,000 feet. After trials at Peenemünde on the Baltic, the V1 was released for service in 1943. The missile was launched from a long ascending ramp using a device powered by the same fuels used by the Me-163. Scheduled to begin operations in December 1943, it was only on the 13th of June 1944, and a week after the landings in Normandy, that the first V1 launched from the Pas de Calais began a German rocket bombardment of London that was to last until the 5th of September. The first missile to reach the environs of London crashed on empty ground. In the face of a mounting campaign of robot bombardment, British countermeasures focused initially on the provision of massed anti-aircraft batteries along the approach routes of the planes. Detachments of heavy 3.7-inch anti-aircraft guns, supported by the lighter 40mm Bofors, expended large quantities of ammunition in their bid to shoot down the V1s. Although sometimes successful, the number of hits increased only when radar was able to provide fire control for the guns. A measure of the intensity of V1 operations was that, in their second period of launchings between the 15th of June and the end of that month, no fewer than 2,442 were launched at London. Crashes and guns accounted for about 1/3 of these over the Channel. Another third either crashed or were brought down over southern England, while the remaining third, approximating to about 800 missiles, impacted on targets in and around London. For the inhabitants of southern England and London, the arrival of a V1 was signalled by the growing growl of its Argus Pulse engine, which prompted the natives to nickname the type the Buzz Bomb. The psychological effect of the weapon was enhanced by its totally indiscriminate nature. It fell to earth only when its fuel ran out, this being signalled by its sudden silence before it impacted with the ground in a great explosion. Although the populace of London displayed the same stoicism as in the Blitz of 1940-41, the V1 still accounted for 2,441 deaths and 7,107 cases of serious injury during the campaign as a result of an average of 53 missiles being launched each day against Britain's capital city. Even so, British intelligence was able to shift the targeting of the V1s by feeding false information of damage to the Germans to help ease the bombardment. Aerial countermeasures provided by the RAF against the V1 included the first use of the Gloucester Meteor F-1 jet fighter. Piston engine types employed to shoot down the robot aircraft included the superlative Hawker Tempest and Spitfire Mark 14s, with the latter responsible for shooting down over 300 of the buzz bombs. Restricted as they were to launch sites in the Pas-de-Calais by virtue of the limited range of the V1s, the initial fixed ramps had been targeted and destroyed by Allied bombing even before D-Day. With the capture of that region by British and Canadian ground forces in September, the V1 bombardment ended. However, the suffering of London was not yet over, as the Germans began use of a new weapon. Although the V2 rocket, more properly known by its A4 designation, was an Army rather than a Luftwaffe project, it has a fitting place in this account of Germany's most advanced airborne projects during the Second World War. Rightly regarded as the instrument which gave birth to the modern rocket age and the product of Nazi Germany's largest and most expensive military program, it truly represented the cutting edge of that nation's technology during the conflict. However, Albert Speer, the Third Reich's former Minister for Armaments Production, when reflecting on past events in the quiet of his cell in Spandau prison while serving a 20-year sentence for war crimes, candidly admitted that, notwithstanding the technical brilliance of the A4 program, it was, from a military and industrial point of view, a profound waste of Germany's resources. Having its origins in pre-war research, the program to develop a long-range rocket was to occupy thousands of scientists and army personnel on the secret testing ground at Peenemünde on the Baltic for many years. Progress in the light of the very advanced technical hurdles to be surmounted in the creation of such a new weapon was slow, and early prototypes of the A4 often came to grief. It was on October the 3rd, 1942, that the first successful A4 launch took place from the Test Stand 7 at Peenemünde. The rocket streaked skyward, breaking the sound barrier as it rose, and hurtled out seaward to land 120 miles downrange. Further development and testing continued, with the type becoming increasingly reliable, and even a once sceptical Hitler was coming to view the long-range missile as an operational possibility. In July 1943, with the A4 now viewed as one of the new revenge weapons with which he could strike at England, Hitler committed German industry to a massive program in which he demanded no fewer than 900 of the rockets to be produced monthly. Drawing as it did on valuable metals, electronics, higher engineering skills and masses of labour, the project naturally made severe inroads on other aspects of Germany's war economy, at a time when it was hard to put to service the demands for more conventional weapons.